Good evening. The opinions and statements voiced by our guests do not necessarily reflect the opinions of this network. Enjoy the shows.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection.
Now, historic films made in the spring of 1948 and just released show Eniwetok preparing for heavily guarded and still largely secret tests of new atomic weapons. The test's purpose is to measure atomic effects on thousands of different materials, 30,000 tons of them, not, as at Bikini, to prove military effectiveness.
San Francisco police say that 9 persons have been arrested in a narcotics raid on the headquarters of the Grateful Dead, a widely popular singing group. 2 members of the group, Rod McKernan and Robert Weir, and their business manager, Danny Rifkin, have been booked on suspicion of possessing narcotics.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
We got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Well, strange lights are causing a viral buzz on YouTube. Could we have caught extraterrestrial activity on a recent newscast? Brandon Arroyo investigates.
As the newscast ended, the controversy began back on September 26th. What is that light shining in the back of the dark night sky?
With coverage reaching all the way back to 1948, for over 70 years, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Now, Fate Magazine Radio is carrying on that tradition of setting the standard in paranormal talk radio as we report and discuss some of the most mysterious and perplexing phenomena imaginable in this strange world of ours. Now, here is your host of Fate Magazine Radio, Kat Hobson.
Good evening. Welcome to the first episode of Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine for 2022. I'm sure most of y'all joined me in kicking 21's butt to the curb with a smile. But you know what? It was a tough year, 2021. There's no doubt about it. There have been so many things that have just seemed like you were watching some sort of satire TV, right? When couldn't believe this stuff was real. And yet, we have come through it. There's been a lot of uprising. There's been a lot of emotion. There's been a lot of anger. There's been a lot of fear. There's been a lot of death. There's been a lot of seeking someone to blame for something that is a virus and does not have the capacity to seek and choose its victims. So one of the things that I decided to do for this year was just continue to do the best I can to be kind and uplifting, to be slow to anger. Those of you that know me know that might be a stretch. But, genuinely, just to try to live my motto, which is to be the change I want to see in the world. There were times that I dropped the ball on that, and that happens. but I am trying very hard to keep that in the forefront of my mind as we come into this year and just be the best me I can be and see what happens with that. So, my Canuck friend who's in chat, not my Canuck friend that we're going to be talking with, said I have a Southern temper. I have a Southern accent. My temper is universal. Just kidding. Hey, even Jesus took whips to the money changers in the temple. So everybody has their moments. First, I want to introduce y'all to my guest tonight. Those who are followers of the show are familiar with him, but he has added a whole new facet to his life recently, and we're going to talk about that. This gentleman is a psychic intuitive counselor. He's basically a life coach. He can help you if you need guidance. He has been knowing what he was going to do since he was 4, and he does it well. And I am very excited to welcome my friend, Robert Lyndsy Milne. Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Now that I'm talking with you, even greater.
See, that's why I like you.
I can't think of a better way to start the new year than with you on your show. So, great. This is the first show for me of the new year.
Thank you. I'm glad you're here.
And it was, you just offered it to me. And how long did it take for me to accept?
How long does it take you to type sure?
No. That's right. That's right. That's how long. And because you, when I was sitting at my desk when you sent it in, and I just said, yes, that was it.
Thank you so much. We have known each other now for 2 years.
I think so. Is this our third time or fourth time on the air?
I think it's our fourth.
Okay. Wow.
I think it's our fourth. So that would be 3 years. And, every time I get a chance to talk to you, I learn so much, and I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
You are very good at what you do.
Thanks.
And the first time that we spoke, it got a little personal, didn't it?
Yes.
It was kind of awkward, but, I feel so safe with you. And I feel safe with our audience, too.
Yes.
So, but I appreciate you.
Thank you.
You came up rather hard doing what you do, and you became well known for being good at what you do when you were young.
Yes.
And now you're world famous, and people are, you are. I mean, it just is, right? It is what it is.
I just laugh at that. Believe me, I'm not discounting it or saying, it's
pshaw.
I'm not doing that at all. It's I'm laughing because I did it. That's what I'm laughing about.
Well, you did it, but you did it because you are, one, you're very kind, and people respond to you. You do have moments. Everyone does. But you're very forthright. And you do a good job of guiding. To say that you're a psychic intuitive counselor is so true. Mm-hmm. It's a perfect title. Life coach ain't bad either. You're good at that too.
Yeah. And I'm really good at doing readings as well.
Yes.
And I do readings. Now, I've only discovered this recently. I only have. So I forgot what I was going to say. I only. I forgot what I was. I can't believe it. Help me with. Yeah, it was about readings.
Well, because we don't do those here unless you're led that way.
No. I was talking about how I do readings. Yes. So I have worked alone I've been a single act. I've just done things my way, and I never realized that the way I do things is very different than what other people are doing. And since I've been appearing on podcasts, the hosts are saying, well, we've never heard about anybody doing it the way I do. So I'll give you an example. When I do a reading, when I tune into somebody, often I see their life from conception to completion. And everywhere in between. Now, I don't go through the years. I don't spend very much time at either end, but I'm aware of it. I see it, and it's all part of the reading. When I'm doing a reading, and someone comes to me, and they're really in a lot of trouble. Whatever a lot of trouble means to that person. The type of trouble that you just can't see your way out and you're stuck. Yeah. That kind of trouble. And what I do is when I'm doing a reading for someone like that, so let's say they're 40. What I do is I start talking to them about the length of their life, and I go forward and say, you'll complete your 40s, go to your 50s, you complete 50s, go to 60s, complete 60s, go to 70s. And what I do is I'll go to, say, 85 years old in this person's life, and I will look back through their eyes and describe what they feel about how they've handled the problem. And I tell that person how they feel about it when they're 80.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, you've never heard of that? A lot of people, I've been discovering that. So then what happens is the person knows two things. Well, one, they're going to be 85.
Which is not bad.
And two, they solved the problem and came out of it. And
That's
then
brilliant.
And then all of a sudden, my client is no longer petrified. Just like that. All right, not just like that. Okay, come on. It's not. Yeah, it's not. It's not like.
Now that's
okay, no. That's
we need a little more.
Yeah, that I don't just do that like right off the top, right? I work up to it. But I start. I'm usually aware if I'm going to do something like that with the person, and what I do then is the way I give the information is I tell them how they solved the problem. How they see it, from when they were 80, how they solved the real serious problems that they're going through today. So then I also give. I really dislike giving bad information. I hate it. Like I just hate giving negative information or information that's hurtful for people. And so what I've developed over the past few years now, by the way, on January 17th is the 57th year of me being a professional psychic.
Really? Congratulations.
Are you 55 yet, Kat?
I love you. I'm 60.
Well, okay, so when you were 3 years old, I started my job.
And you've only grown.
Yeah, I was 15 and a half. So I've learned over the year, I've experimented many different ways of giving bad news, including not giving bad news. So Now, after more than like 100,000 connections, the way I do it is I start off with telling them something that's absolutely amazing about the end result of the terrible problems that they're about to have. So I go into the future, say 2 years, and I describe things that are going on, and as a result of the problems that they experience, and it's usually the good things, right? Mm-hmm. Then what I do is I come back to today, and then I just give them just a little wee hint that something may be awry. Just casually leave it, go on to another subject, also focusing on positive things in that person's life, and positive things both that would be a year or a month down the road in the future, and positive in the structure of their life. So I'm showing them how where their life is secure. And then I'll tell them a little bit more about that negative thing that's going to be coming.
Well,
and then I'll change the subject, and I'll go on to something else, and again reinforce that person's strengths. And then I'll then go back and I'll then go back and highlight the really positive event that's going to happen, or the positive result of whatever catastrophe is coming. And it doesn't have to be a catastrophe. I'm just being dramatic. And
I understand that.
So then I'll come back and give them just a bit more information, and then I'll know that they've been thinking about it. Mm-hmm. I see that look in their eye, and then I just introduce it in a more intense way. And I introduce it until they accept it. And then I talk about how they're going to go through it, what they need, and then I go back to the inevitable end result.
That's interesting.
So that way, the person, if I do it right, they're almost excited about going through the crap to get to the other side.
Well, that's actually a really great way to deal with that. I have friends who are going through some health crises.
Yes.
And, all I can do is love them through it, right?
Yes. Yes.
So to be able to know that you were guiding in that manner, that's so special and so important.
Yes, it is. I have worked with people that are very ill, like in terminally, and I have a mental link with them, and I know where they're at, like 24/7, and I know, but what's going on with them. And when I've been working with these people, I always focus on, something that's really beautiful in the moment, mm-hmm. and focus on that. I was working with a woman for a year or so, and she was very ill, and she ultimately died. And she would go through times of panic. I would never tell her she would die. She would go through times of panic that she was dying, and I would say, just a minute, you're alive right now. Right now, you're alive. And you're going to be alive this afternoon. And you're going to be alive tomorrow. And tomorrow after that. And tomorrow after that. Focus on being alive now.
Well,
And
that's when you have to focus in the moment. And I have to
Yes.
stop you. I apologize so much because this is so important, but we have to take a break.
okay.
And we'll be right back. So, everyone, we'll be right back. And I know that y'all know Robert Lyndsy, but this is special. So, see you on the other side.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
We are confident that none of our hosts are possessed. Being repossessed a few times, that might be a different story. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour. We are back with Robert Lyndsy Milne. Thank you so much for joining us, and I'm so sorry I had to interrupt you. But
Oh, that's okay.
I think that what we're talking about is so important that you were doing the guidance and helping this woman. But you help a lot. But please go on. I am sorry I had to interrupt you.
Yeah, I was just trying to remember the point that I was making, and
that she was alive today, and that she would be alive tomorrow.
Yes, and I pointed out that that you're alive right now, and you'll be alive this afternoon, and you'll be alive tonight and tomorrow, and you're going to be alive next week, and you're going to be alive next month. Focus on being alive right now. Hug your daughter. Tell your husband you love him. Let him love you. And that would be some of the things that I would do with her. But I'd also listen to her as well. That was in the work that I was doing, and I was paid by her family to do that, and it was a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week thing. She was in my mind and my thoughts, the feelings through the whole time.
Well, that is part of the human that you are. I mean, I think that it's absolutely imperative that someone in crisis like that has someone like you. When my dad was crossing, he had already planned. He had a life well lived. He was, definitely a woodsman, as well as a PhD guy that, helped people with that and such. But not everyone is in those shoes, and not everyone is prepared to cope with their own passing.
I've helped I helped a guy a few years ago deal with that. Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well,
sorry, I just jumped in. Sorry, interrupted. Sorry.
I don't ever mind you jumping in. It's okay. But it just is neat what you do. And I mean, I know that what we're talking about is the most extreme thing probably that you do. But I don't think that our culture deals with death very well. And, we're, depending on where you are and how you grew up and all this other stuff, you get some of the hellfire brimstone people, you get some of the, God is nothing but love, and there's no anger that comes from, that. There's no judgment that comes from that.
I'm biting my tongue with some of the things that you're saying. God is everything.
God is everything.
So if God is love, then God also has to be hate, because it exists. God is everything. Right. Okay, but God is love, but it is also hate.
Well, it's the balance. It's the yin and the yang.
Absolutely.
He created all of that, which means that he is all of that.
Yeah, right.
But I was talking about in different cultures that,
yes, okay.
You get the people that won't accept that because they've been taught differently.
See, I know. See, what's going on right now, Kat, is, you're this good old Southern belle down south, and it's kind of warm down there compared to us.
We're under a snow advisory.
Oh, yeah? Well, anyway.
It was 75 this morning.
Yeah, right. Okay. So you haven't had the storm yet. So,
Gotcha.
You're this good old, Southern belle, and just everything's just fine, just nice and calm and relaxed. And I'm just, just north of the 42 and parallel of latitude. And we were like minus 12 today, and it was snowing. So I've got that, high energy, keep the fire burning to stay alive focus. So that's why I just keep jumping in. I haven't quite slowed down for you.
You don't ever bother me when you're jumping in.
Okay.
And I don't know if I'm a Southern belle, but I'm a little too feisty. People down here think, oh my God, she is such a freak. I'm not. Well, maybe I am. But
Scarlett O'Hara was a Southern belle,
and she would kick anybody's butt.
Oh, absolutely.
To do what she had to do.
The book and the movie, Scarlett O'Hara in the movie and Scarlett O'Hara in the book are very different characters.
Indeed.
And in the book, in the movie, she's made out to be just a spoiled rich kid, and then just a selfish person.
Right.
And in the book, she's made out to be a heroine of the family. And what she did to keep the family together was amazing.
Yes.
And her commitment, and in the book, she was just written that she was a tough businesswoman, not a spoiled little brat, because she wasn't. Anyway, yes, once again.
Actually, you're absolutely correct. Those who base their opinions on Southerners on Gone with the Wind are often surprised as well from the movie.
Yeah.
So people who have read the book, and I think it's fabulous. And it's such a different characterization. You're absolutely correct. But she was. I mean, she was the first woman in Atlanta to go into business for herself and run her late husband's sawmills and do all the things. And she took care of her family members who couldn't take care of themselves.
Absolutely.
And their entire household was family.
Yeah.
So, interesting concept.
And
probably much closer to the way Southern families try to do things, I would think.
Okay. Well,
general families.
She might not have been, the nicest, but it was different in the way she was as opposed to the way she was in the book or in the movie. And she was a survivor, but a survivor because she did so many more things in the book. For example, she was married and had more children than in the movie.
Right.
I think she had 3 or 4. And, things like that. And the way she got her wood mill going. And, she was just, I have to tell you, I love collecting stories about people and about Canadians. And there's a place in New Brunswick called St. Andrews by the Bay, and at that time it was a little fishing village, and now it's a nice tourist area, and they have this beautiful hotel called the Algonquin that reminds you of the Great Gatsby. And then they have the Arts Center. But in the old days, St. Andrews by the Sea, the small little fishing village on the ocean or on the sea, and there's only one road into town. And there I met Bessie Thurbor. And I met Bessie Thurbor in about 1983, 1984. And she was quite old. And she had gone blind. And she was living beside my friends. Bessie Thurbor had been born in St. Andrews by the Sea. And she had like 7 or 8 kids. And her husband was a fisherman. And one night they went out fishing, or one day they went out fishing, and there was a bad storm, and nobody came home. And there was this poor woman, all alone in the world, with her children. And there was a small insurance policy, and Bessie decided to buy the dry cleaner store in town. And so she went through it and spent all her money on the dry cleaner store. And after she took possession, she was informed by the mayor or whatever he was of the town that in order to operate the steam for the dry cleaners, she had to have an engineer's license.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. And the only way she could get it was she would have to go to another city in New Brunswick, pretty far away, and it was St. John. And that was where the university was, where she would take the class. So Bessie got on the train and she went down to the university there. Now we're talking about the 1930s, 1940s.
My gracious.
So she takes the train to the university and gets all her books and stuff. And then she asks her professor, and can I do this from home and then come in and write the exams? And he said, well, I suppose, yes, you can. So she had all her books and she did all her studies on her own in St. Andrews by the Sea. And she did that for about 2 years. When it came time to write the final exam, she went all the way into St. John, and she was in a room of men, and the men were so outraged that a woman was in the room and writing the test. They just made so much commotion Bessie had to be put in a room all by herself because of the ruckus the men were making.
My word.
Bessie had the highest score of all of that class that year and was valedictorian.
I love that.
Hang on to your chair. So now she goes back and opens her dry cleaning. And the town of St. Andrews by the Sea, their municipal buildings and all that are run by pipes, steam.
Mm-hmm.
And the engineer died or quit or, also went down on the ship or whatever. Anyway, Bessie started looking after the steam plants and boilers for the town and her dry cleaners. She did that, made her living, put her children to school, and throughout, and she worked as, she got the engineer's license, and all the men treated her like equal. And by the time I met Bessie, she was well into her 80s, and she had gone blind. And still to that day, if there were problems with the steam boilers, the young men that worked on them would come to Bessie and ask her advice on how to fix them. And that's one of the most fabulous stories of women that I can think of.
That
Bessie's
is the best story.
That's right.
And
there she was. And she was just this woman, she lived in a fishing village her whole life. And her husband died. And she did what she had to do. Like, wow. I love women like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. That's got nothing to do with being psychic, but it was a nice story.
Well, it's a great story because, it's all about your motivation.
She wouldn't give up.
Right. She couldn't give up. She had children.
That's right.
People depended on her.
Absolutely. Amazing.
And Kat Ward in chat, who is familiar with St. Andrews by the Sea and has been putting details out there, says she did not know this story. So thank you so much for sharing.
Oh, Bessie Thurber, yes. I met her quite late, and she had, I think, glaucoma, and she couldn't see. And she had heard me several times on radio stations in the area. And my friends that I knew from Toronto that moved to St. Andrews, I was, dropped in to see them. They had told Bessie that they knew me, and Bessie wanted to meet me, and she had a question for me. And her question was, will she get her sight back again? And that was the question that she asked me.
I would probably want to know that too.
Not bad, eh? Yeah.
But, you have come in contact with so many interesting people.
I'm so privileged. Work. Yeah, I know.
And, it just astounds me, really, every time we talk, that these people are from all walks of life. They have interesting lives, careers, or not. And I just love that you share this so well. And by the way, Kat said that she is about 20 minutes or so from Moncton in New Brunswick.
Moncton, New Brunswick.
That's a T, not an L. Yes.
Moncton, New Brunswick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, so she's listening.
She is.
Well, okay. So I was I was appearing on the radio station. At the time, this radio station was broadcasting from the Hotel Beau Séjour in Moncton, New Brunswick. And I was booked on the show, and I was flying into Moncton with my secretary, and we would be staying at the Beau Séjour for sure, because the radio station was in the hotel. Mm-hmm. And everything was set up, and as we're flying in, we flew from Toronto to Montreal, and then we caught the flight from Montreal to Moncton. And as we were flying towards Moncton, a big blizzard happened. And when the plane came in to land in the blizzard, it hit the runway and it spun off in the runway, and it didn't roll over or anything, but it spun out. And then all the ambulances come out, and they bring us into the terminal, and everybody's lined up to call to the hotels to get a hotel because of this big blizzard. But I didn't worry because I was booked in at the hotel's Beau Séjour because I'd confirmed it with the program director that very day.
Right.
So I was feeling very comfortable in the midst of this really huge blizzard. And anyway, we shared a limousine downtown to the Beau Séjour, and there was this great big long lineup with people waiting to get in. And I got up to the counter and I said, "Hi, Robert Lyndsy Milne." I can't remember the name of the radio station now. Anyway, "Hi, Robert Lyndsy Milne here. And my reservations are through the radio station." And they say, "Oh, sorry, Mr. Milne, we have no reservations in your name." It's, "Oh, you have to."
Oh, my word.
You have to. And anyway, they didn't. And somehow they got in touch with the program director. And then I spoke to him, and he said, "Oh, shit, man, I'm sorry, I forgot. And I'm in the middle of this blizzard, and I don't have a hotel room." Anyway, he gets me this little hotel room off to the side. And then, anyway, the next day I came in. And that was my first meeting, in my first time in Moncton. That's how that one went.
Well, we are going to take our next break, but Kat said CKCW.
Yeah, I think so. The guy the talk show host when I was there used to be on CKJD in St. John, and his brother was the mayor of St. John at the time.
Interesting. It's a small world, isn't it?
Isn't it wonderful?
Gets smaller every day. But we will be right back. Y'all come back too. We will catch you on the flip side.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine, and we have got so many coincidences happening in our chat. Because my friend Kat Ward, who is in chat, and you may have heard me on her podcast, Paranormal Heart, is from the area that that we've been talking about. And so you wanted to know if she was an Acadian, and she is. So you were telling me that Acadians are French descendants, but the Acadians that I know are from New Orleans, from Louisiana.
They're called Cajuns.
But they're also Acadians.
And they are direct descendants.
It's so neat. And she said that when they were kicked out in the 1700s, a lot of the Acadians went to the U.S.
Yes, the expulsions of the Acadians. So anyway, for both of you cats, there was one time I went through into St. John, New Brunswick, and that's S-A-I-N-T, Saint, spelled right, John. And the hotel right in town, right in the middle of the city, was called the Admiral Beatty. And it was a beautiful, old-fashioned hotel. It was just stunning. It was small and quaint, and it was probably a railroad town. And I stayed there several times. And because I was on CFBC. And the talk show host name was Tom. Anyway, it'll come to me. Tom something. Anyway, we stayed at the Admiral Beatty. The Admiral Beatty then was closing. And I was there the weekend it closed, and it was during the Canadian Thanksgiving weekend. And myself and my secretary and one other person were the only people in the hotel before it closed. And it was this grand, beautiful hotel. And and it turns out like the other person that was staying was in the suite directly above us, one floor up. And it turned out to be Mr. Irving Sr., who owned Irving Oil, because he had his own private suite in the Admiral Beatty. And so we were the only three people in the building, and they were having dinner downstairs. So I walked upstairs and I knocked on Mr. Irvin's door, and I invited him to have dinner with us, but he said no. But anyway, that's my story about the Admiral Beatty. So that's a story just for you, Kat, because you're a New Brunswicker.
That is so neat.
Yeah, okay. You're a fellow Canadian. So there's one for you, sweetie.
So you would enjoy her. And by the way, her podcast is called Paranormal Heart.
Okay.
So I've got a feeling you'll be hearing from her.
That's great. So what were we talking about? We were talking about something that was, kind of interesting. The way I was doing readings and the way I was giving bad news. One of the things that, I really get off on doing this. This is like, I really love this. When people come to me, they're often panicked. They're often afraid. They're nervous. They're in trouble. Very few, very seldom does somebody say, hey, let's go to see Robert Lyndsy Milne for a reading. I need a good, well, usually it's because somebody has an issue, a problem, something they want to work with at minimum. So they're nervous and they're afraid and they're scared. And one of the things that I really love, the skill that I've developed that I really love, is my ability to, within a really short amount of time, have that other person relaxed, secure, feeling safe, and knowing that they're going to get through it. And I'm really good at doing that. I get high doing that, and I love to see when they come in and their eyes are all big and starey, and and their faces all kind of crunched up and tense, and when they leave, their eyes are all relaxed and they're smiling. It's the greatest rush I have. Okay, I've had others, but not like this.
And the truth will out.
That's right.
But there is something special about being able to help someone in a moment of crisis.
Absolutely. And my work as a psychic, actually, I think I have another way I can describe it. My life work, part of it is as a psychic. Mm-hmm. Although I do being psychic a whole lot, it's what I work at every day. But I have saved more people's lives than I can remember. When I say I've saved more people's lives, I don't mean by giving somebody the right advice, don't turn left on, on Clinton Street at 3 this afternoon, or you'll get hit by a train. Not that kind of advice. That person is in a situation and they would die if somebody or something didn't intervene. Yes. And that has happened more than I can remember from as far back as I can remember. And they just happen around me. I'll give you an example. One time, my dentist was right in downtown Toronto, and my office was in midtown Toronto. And our subway line took me from right where my office was straight to my dentist's office. And that's easier than driving through traffic. I often would take the route, get on the streetcar, or get on the subway at Bloor, take it east to Yonge Street, and then Yonge Street straight south to Queen, and that's where his office is. This one particular day, I don't know why, no reason, I decided instead of going the shortest route, I decided that I was going to get off at another stop and go a longer route. No reason. I'm just going to do it. So it was at a terminal and where to go. So I was going eastbound on the subway. It stopped at a street stop called St. George. And I got off and I went downstairs to the north-south line. And I was going to go south. As I got to the bottom of the stairs, there was a subway train in the terminal, and I started running because it was getting ready to go. And as I was getting really close to the doors, I saw the doors closing, and I just took a step back because I wasn't going to take that risk.
Right.
Right beside me, this young woman comes running up to get in the door that I chose not to get into. She puts her foot down, and the doors closed on her foot. And the train was about to start.
Holy cat.
And she was standing right in front of me. And what I simply did is I bent down, put my hands around her shin just above her ankle, and I pulled her foot out of her shoe. And then I just pulled her back and I let go. When I let go, the train started to move, and her shoe started to bounce from a subway car to the wall of the platform, and it was bouncing back and forth. And then this woman bent down to pick up that shoe just as the space between the cars were coming up. And she reached forward to grab her shoes, and she started to slip. Oh, and she was going head first into the tunnel or onto the track in the space between the two cars. And I saw it, and I reached around. I put my arms around her waist. I was standing behind her. I put my arms around her waist, grabbed hold of her, picked her up, and pulled her back about 3 steps and then let go. At that point, I looked over my shoulder, and I realized I was on the wrong platform and that I was standing on the northbound platform, and I really wanted to be on the southbound platform. I let go of the woman. A couple of people came up to her, and she was crying and stuff, and I turned around and ran over to the platform on the southbound train. I got on the southbound train, sat down, the train went on its way, and about 3 stops later, I was thinking about it, and I said, you might have just saved her life.
Twice.
Yeah. And that happens in all parts of my life, in almost every way you can think of.
That's really astounding.
Oh, I love it, but I don't think about it very much. I've just started to remember some of them since I started doing podcasts, and since I stopped talking about, I was 14 and a half on the streets, and that's how, I got off the streets by working at a tea room doing readings. It's an interesting story, but it happened 57 years ago. So,
right.
And I started talking, but the other stuff that I do is equally interesting.
Well, everything about you is equally interesting.
Oh, there's a few people around that may not agree with you, but
well, that's okay.
But there are,
They don't get a vote here.
Yeah.
But seriously, I mean, it's ever since I've known you, I've known that you were, well, A, I've known what you do. B, I've known your history because I do research my guests. But you are so much more. And it's not necessarily, any kind of woo-woo more or anything. But you are just an absolute, A, you're a delight to talk to.
Thank you.
B, you are very open to just about any line of conversation. And you care about people.
I do.
So those things come together and they're all really huge. So you don't present necessarily as larger than life. You're very modest, but you're very open. Yeah. But kind of you are. I mean, you've touched my life. You've touched several of my listeners' lives who have reached out to me about you. And I think that's just absolutely the best thing that you can do as a human, is to be willing to kind of like stand in the gap a little bit, to coin a phrase, and you do that. You teach people themselves about themselves.
Throughout my life as well, I just sort of fell into this. When I go through hard times, and I have had some good hard times, or even when I'm having a bad day. But what I have often done is when I'm going through a hard time is I find someone who's going through a worse time, and I help them. Mm-hmm. And by the way, it isn't difficult to find someone that's going through a worse time. And so
that's the open part.
I help them. I help them. And the joy that I get from helping them, also then gives me the strength to sort out whatever I'm going through. Or creates the energy that will bring the help to me. That would be the balancing of that energy. Because I always get taken care of. I have always been taken care of on the street. There's always been, almost always been a way when I've been in trouble, in difficult situations, and there's always been ways for me to solve the problem using my intuitive and psychic ability. And I've always been presented with a way that I could solve that problem doing something illegal or immoral. And especially when I was a child on the street, I was often faced with those. And almost always I chose to solve the problem by my intuition and survival skills rather than doing something illegal or immoral. Not 100% of the time, but most.
Yeah.
There was no right or wrong answer. There was no right or wrong, but by the choices I made determined what path I walked in, or
Yes.
what I walked on. So, but there was no right or wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're going to take our top of the hour break.
Okay.
Because I want to continue in this event when we come back. So, everyone, this is our top of the hour news break. And you know I'm always looking for a little good news, right? Maybe tonight's the night. So, let's go see. We'll see you on the other side of this. Thank you so much for listening to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. Myself and my guest, Robert Lyndsy Milne. We'll be back with you in just a bit.
Live from NPR News, I'm Janine Herbst. President Biden spoke with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky today, telling him the U.S. and its allies will, quote, respond decisively if Russia further invades Ukraine. This according to a White House statement. This comes days after Biden held a second conversation in a month with Russian President Vladimir Putin amid tensions on Russia's border with Ukraine, where Moscow has massed some 100,000 troops. Healthcare officials in rural America are warning more hospital closures are looming in the new year as federal pandemic relief money dries up and COVID rages on in small towns. NPR's Kirk Siegler reports dozens have already closed, particularly in rural Southeast, since the pandemic began.
Rural healthcare leaders are pressuring the Biden administration and Congress for another round of provider relief funds, which have paid for things like temporary pay increases to attract traveling nurses to small towns.
Rural does a lot of things great. What it doesn't do great is deal with a global pandemic.
Alan Morgan is CEO of the National Rural Health Association.
We've asked rural hospitals to serve a function they were never designed to serve. And as a result, it's just crushed our rural health safety net out there.
Due to ongoing gaps in healthcare access, Morgan says people who become sick with COVID-19 in a small town are now twice as likely to die as those stricken by the virus in cities. Kirk Siegler, NPR News.
And the UK's health minister says people have to prepare to, quote, live alongside COVID-19 this year, even as England recorded yet another record high number of positive cases. Bill Marks has more.
The UK Health Minister Sajid Javid has insisted further legal restrictions on socialising in England are a, quote, last resort, as the government has so far balked at introducing them. But after a fifth consecutive day of record-high infection numbers, he acknowledged Omicron would, quote, test the country's National Health Service. Healthcare leaders warn the system faces unprecedented staffing pressure.
Willem Marks reporting. Twitter has permanently suspended Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's personal account. Rahul Bali of member station WABE reports it's the latest issue between the Georgia Republican and the social media giant.
Twitter says the permanent suspension of Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene's personal account is because of repeated violations of its COVID-19 misinformation policy. Greene has run afoul of Twitter for tweets about COVID-19 vaccines failing and causing deaths, unfounded claims of election fraud, and QAnon. In January of last year, the company temporarily suspended Greene's account for multiple violations of the company's civic integrity policy. In a statement, Greene blasted the decision, calling Twitter an enemy to America. Greene's congressional Twitter remains active. For NPR News, I'm Rahul Bali in Atlanta.
And you're listening to NPR News. In South Africa, firefighters are battling a major blaze at the country's National Parliament complex in the southern city of Cape Town. Officials say the fire started in a building that houses offices and spread to the National Assembly building where South Africa's parliament sits. A city official says some offices were gutted by the blaze and efforts are now focused on saving the National Assembly where some of the ceilings have collapsed. Police are questioning a person in connection with the fire. The 138-year-old Parliament complex is a historic gem that's hosted some of the most pivotal moments in South Africa's history, and it contains some priceless artifacts. Scientists eager to start using NASA's James Webb Space Telescope have something to celebrate. NPR's Joel Pelko reports the space agency says there's a good chance the telescope mission will last longer than planned.
NASA had expected the Webb telescope mission to last 10 years. Not because its parts will wear out, but because it will run out of the fuel it needs to stay in its desired orbit 1 million miles from Earth. But the space agency says the Ariane 5 rocket that sent the telescope into space did such an excellent job that less fuel than expected was needed for mid-course corrections, so more for operations. The telescope won't be fully operational for 6 months or so. Once it is, astronomers will use it to explore some of the earliest stars and galaxies to form after the universe came into existence. Joe Palca, NPR News.
U.S. futures contracts are trading higher at this hour. Dow futures contract up about 0.3%. NASDAQ futures are up about 0.4. I'm Janine Herbst, and you're listening to NPR News.
This message is brought to you by the NPR Coffee Club. A subscription brings fresh roasted coffee directly to your door, and you can also give a gift subscription to the NPR superfan in your life. Learn more about our new NPR blends by visiting us at nprcoffeeclub.org.
Welcome back to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 5 minutes after the hour. Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. If you have not been checking out our website, you need to. It's fatemag.com, and you can renew your subscriptions. You can get uncirculated editions. If you need something to finish out your collection, you can get trading cards. We have got the most comfortable, wonderful shirts now. I can say that because I wear them. So check it out, fatemag.com, and you can also listen to us there. The chat's available as well. But it's a wonderful website. Phyllis and our others put so much work into it. You'll appreciate it. But my guest tonight is Robert Lyndsy Milne, and we have just been having a great conversation. So
a lot goes on between, a lot of stuff goes on. We don't just shut up and, in silence like we keep talking.
No, I don't do the quiet game well. We do talk through the breaks.
You bring it up. You bring it out in me, God.
Well, some people might appreciate that, and
that's right.
I think they would appreciate it being brought out in you.
Yeah.
When we left, we were talking about how you have always been protected, pretty much.
Yes. Yeah.
And I find that to be true as well. I don't do what you do, certainly not to your level, but I have found that
you work to your level, which is uniquely yours.
Mm-hmm. And I like it because I can and do help people sometimes. I have been fussed at for not being forthcoming about all the things that I do, but I do think that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because people are just shocked as all get out sometimes.
I bet.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
But I do think that people who have gifts have them to help in situations where there might not be other help forthcoming. And I don't know why the other help is not forthcoming. Maybe it's because that's what you're supposed to do, to trust your creator. I don't know. But I find it interesting that you so often are in a position to recognize a need that's not necessarily visible to other people, but it's there and you address it. And I know that you've known that you were different, that you had these abilities, recognize the skill set, not in full, obviously, at 4. But you are very good now at just recognizing a need and stepping in.
Absolutely. That's exactly right. I see the need and I fulfill it. And then when the need has been fulfilled, I leave, and I really don't always have a lot of emotion about it, other than I just did something. Just trying to think of. So I am of the belief that miracles are only miracles until you know how to do them.
Yes.
And then when you know how to do them, they're not miracles. They're something else, but they're not miracles.
Right.
So, and I've always been fascinated with miracles. And when we think of miracles, we think of walking on water, right? Well, that's the gold medal round of miracles, walking on water. So that's the one where you win that event. You do well at that event. You get put on a pedestal. They play your national anthem, put a gold medal on you. You get idolized. That's walking on water.
Mm-hmm.
But the guy that won that medal, that wasn't the first thing he did.
No.
And you work your way up. You don't start off at the top like that. So a miracle is only a miracle if you don't know how to do it. And when you want to do a miracle, you just have to practice doing it. So when you believe you can do something, you can do it.
Yes.
And when you don't believe you can do something, you can't do it. So
Yes.
the only reason you can't fly is because you absolutely believe you cannot. The only reason you can't walk through a wall is because you absolutely believe you cannot. Because if you believed it, you could do it. And I've always seen things like that. Now, I have always been interested in the manipulating and the directing and use of energy.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
And at a young age, when I was, after I stopped working at Tea Room, I was living at this flea bag hotel in Toronto. It was called Larry's Hideaway. And I worked there on the front desk in exchange for room and board. And that way I didn't have to worry about, making enough money to pay my rent when I was doing readings. And that just made it really easy. So I worked on the front desk at night, for 4 nights. And in the bar downstairs, there were often brawls, like big brawls. And the rule in that hotel was when there was a brawl in the bar, every male that works in the building or works for the company, their duty is to go downstairs and help the bouncers, stop the brawl. And I kind of liked that at that time. So, but then when I would go down there, and I would always start to fantasize about walking in and raising my hands and commanding all the people that are fighting to stop. I used to fantasize doing that. I never dared to do it, but I always fantasized it. And I started thinking about it a lot. And then what I started doing and thinking about it is I started watching people when they were having arguments or an intense discussion or a confrontation. And I'm a clairsentient. I'm a clairsentient. I'm really good at reading body language, and I really understand energy. Well, I didn't then, but this is the reason I understand energy is because of the work that I'm describing now.
Right.
So I would stand beside people that are in the midst of a quarrel, and I would just watch their body language. I would just feel their energy. And in those quarrels or in those situations, there's one moment of truth, as it were, where it goes one way or the other. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, that one person can just freak out and then it becomes a big brawl. Or there's something that happens and it stops. And I've studied that energy and I've watched how it, for years and years and years. And over the years, I've experimented in watching these processes grow and evolve and do things, but not physically, but do things that would change the focus or the energy
yes.
between the combatants. and I started doing things like that, and that would be interfering with, and I did, and I did it for, practiced and studied it for 30 years. One day, remember that now, remember this is being timing, being in touch with the energy, the manipulating of energy, and being into the flow. This one Saturday morning, I woke up and I had to make a banana cream pie. No, a coconut banana cream pie. I had to do it. It wasn't that, there was no, I did not go to bed thinking about baking a coconut cream pie. No, seriously, I did not go to bed thinking about that. Although, there have been times in my life where I got obsessed with baking and, people thought that I was a pastry chef and not a psychic. That I kept that part private. So anyway, I woke up this morning, had to bake a coconut cream pie. And of course, I had to have a real coconut. None of this crap in a plastic bag or something, right? Or in a jar. Fresh coconut.
Absolutely.
So I went on a tour of all the grocery stores that I thought would have a coconut. And I went to about 7 stores. No coconuts. None.
In Canada.
And I was, right. Well, we don't grow them here, that's for sure.
That's for sure.
So anyway, I had been driving around for about an hour and a half, and I was starting to get pissed. And then I remembered, just a little ways away from where I was, that at that moment, there was an Asian grocery store, and it's a chain of grocery stores, by the way, of Asian, and it was about a mile away from where I was. And I thought, that's where my coconut is. Drive up there, get to the store, get out of my Jeep, and I start walking towards the store. Now, this is kind of like a strip mall and kind of an indoor mall all in one. And the Asian store was one part of it was in the strip mall, and you had to walk through along the strip mall, and then into the part where it's covered. So as I was walking up there, and there was a great big area that was all paved, like a parking lot, right near where the store was. And there was a group of young men or teenagers, at my age, they all look like kids. But there were a group of young men. There could have been 15, 20 of them. And they were in a group, and they were chanting. And they were not chanting, Om. They were, like chanting and throwing their arms around and making a lot of noise, and they were getting revved up. And my thought was, what the hell are these kids doing? I wonder what, because I'm really curious, right? And so I just kind of walked around the group, because they were in kind of like a circle. And I just kind of walked around, taking a look at them. And then I noticed they were focusing their attention, the energy, towards the wall where the grocery store is. And specifically, there was a bicycle rack. And tied to the bicycle rack was a Labrador Retriever type dog. And they were directing their energy to that dog. And they were going to do something that would hurt that dog. It was very, very clear. And that dog knew they were going to hurt him. And that dog was really afraid. And I looked at those guys in their group, and I just relaxed. And I took the feelings of I want to punch you in the out of my head. And I released the you're bad. And I just relaxed. And I got to the point where I had no opinion. And I took a very deep breath. And I walked right smack dab in the middle of the group, right in the eye of the hurricane, right smack dab in the middle. And I just stood there. I didn't say anything. I didn't get in touch with any feelings. I just stood there and I was neutral.
Mm-hmm.
The leader of the pack made eye contact with me. And he said, "Is that your dog?" And I said, "No, but he's a friend of mine." And the guy looked at me, and there was a sense of popping, like balloon burst. And the energy burst from the group. And then I just turned around and I walked over to the dog and started patting the dog. And when I looked back, the group had begun to disperse and they were all walking away.
Oh, we have to take a break. But I am so glad that happened. And we'll finish this in just a second because I have that dog, not that particular dog. But we'll be right back. So, you're such a hero.
Warning, the following message does not necessarily reflect the views of WBHM-DB or its hosts, guests, listeners, or of any functioning adult in general. In fact, Frank should probably seek professional help. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi there, Frank Lee here. I thought that I would spend a few moments telling you about the positivity from the network here. The overall message of para-unity and happiness, and how everyone here wants to get along with everyone out there, and how everything is just wonderful. Wait, Cat's not looking. Okay, I've got something to really tell you. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what's really going on. Honestly, all that being nice and positive crap was kind of hurting my soul, as dark as it is. So, what's really happening? Well, you see it all the time. Everybody and their brother out there has a paranormal team because they watched a couple of episodes of Ghost Hunters or some crap like that. So they go and they spend half their mortgage payment on tools and things that light up that they don't understand. And then the next logical step after buying matching black t-shirts and posing like 90s rappers for their Facebook page is to, of course, have their own podcast. Well, you know what? You're not going to find that crap here. What we have here at WBHM Digital Broadcasting is the best host, the best guest, bringing you real information. All of the hosts here on this network know their stuff. They are the people who have been out there doing the work, doing actual research. And no, by research, I don't mean binge watching some kind of cheesy TV show on Netflix. I mean reading books. I mean out in the field doing the legwork. And who are they interviewing on their shows? They're bringing you the people they have learned from. They're bringing you the best in the field, covering all kinds of topics from UFOs and aliens to Bigfoot to cryptozoology to ghosts to anything you can think of. A bit strange and unexplained. It is here, and you're going to get the best information here. So stay tuned to WBHM Digital Broadcasting. Don't go anywhere. Speaking of going somewhere, I've got to go before my mic gets cut. We'll see you there on WBHM-DB.
Welcome back to Fate Mag Radio. And you know what? I get accused of doing cliffhangers all the time. I'm sorry. If I don't do it, then they put something I don't like in there. So I have to do that. So I am so glad, Lizzie, that you are going to be able to finish this because it matters. This is so important. So they started to disperse.
So when I walked in the middle of the group of kids, the boys, men, I don't know, were they teenagers? Like I said, it's hard to understand, but they were very big, and a lot of them were bigger than me. And I realized that when I walked into the group like that, I had no feelings towards them one way or another. Not positive, not negative. It was just a sense of you're there. And that detached acceptance. Had I had any kind of emotion or expressed even a little bit of aggression, they would have turned on me.
Yes.
And I was realizing that in the midst while I was doing it. When I left the group, and I really heard like a big bang when the energy, it was like a big balloon, the way it burst.
Right.
And I felt like I heard it, but I didn't, not with my ears anyway. And when I was walking over to the dog, because we were making eye contact, because that poor dog was really afraid. And as I was looking back, I was seeing the kids walking away, and they were just getting back to being normal kids again. And I was patting the dog for a moment or two, and then I look up and I see a guy coming out, and I say to this guy, I say, "Is this your dog?" And he says, "Yeah." And he's probably wondering, he was wondering why I'm patting his dog. And I said to him, "What a nice dog you've got here. And boy, if your dog could speak, he would have a story to tell you." And then I said, goodbye. And I went to the grocery store and got my coconut and drove home. And I thought about it a lot. And one of the things that I really have to be a bit of I've always wanted to have these kind of superpowers, but I didn't.
Right.
Because, and I'll tell you why, because if I would have had the ability to zap people, I would have zapped a lot of people. It would have happened.
Yes.
There's a reason why I will never carry a gun is because I could get mad and pull it out and shoot somebody. So, I realized that. So I was always afraid of being able to have that manipulation of energy. What I realized is that I couldn't have manipulated the energy that way. And that the only way would have been to neutralize it. Any other way would have created something violent. And then I relaxed and felt really good again.
As you should.
Yeah.
You laughed when I said you were a hero.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But in my world, that was heroic. And
I didn't think of it. I didn't think. I simply did.
Exactly.
I didn't think about the woman in the subway. I just simply did. It was there, and I did it. And a lot of times I wasn't thinking. Did you ever see the movie City of Angels?
Yes.
Okay. Nicolas Cage, right.
The reason I saw the movie.
Oh, okay. Well, it was the other actor that I watched the movie for. But, so, if I could have my wish, I would love to have that job. Yeah. And I would love that job, except I would like to have emotions and be able to feel it rather than just be like a zombie. But that would be my fantasy. That would be, if there's a possibility of that, that is what I'm working towards to get. I would love that. I would love that job.
Well, it sounds like you're doing pretty good with your training.
And I'm hoping that what's happening is my training.
I know.
It's very difficult for me to look the other way when I see something happening. It's very difficult.
I am not very good at that.
Looking the other way.
I just can't. I have some sort of switch inside that kicks into. It doesn't necessarily get violent. I don't have to be violent.
Yeah.
But I kick into warrior mode.
Huh.
And it's situational.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know that I would have been in the environment that you were facing with an animal or a child at risk and been able to put my emotions aside. Although I do understand that that's what would be necessary. I just don't know that I could control that. But I do know that I've been in situations where warrior mode is different from beast mode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I chose that word instead. But I will do what I can for the underdog, as it were. Sick, homeless, uncared for, no idea where something is coming from that is a necessity. I'm that person that tries to recognize and fix that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I do try to do it without emotion involved, because I think that, as you said, if you had shown any emotion, you would have been who was ripped from limb to limb.
Absolutely. Would have been torn apart.
And it's very difficult. So that level of Zen is very difficult for me to achieve.
That might have been the first time I got there.
Right. Well, maybe in that situation, if I felt that if I recognized the necessity of being able to achieve it to save that animal, I could have done it. But it's just so.
Well, remember,
imperative.
I've been practicing it for years.
I do know that, but I have been doing it for years.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I just don't know that in that situation I would have been able to contain. Although, hopefully, I would recognize what an idiot I would be to go in there and be aggressive, right? So, it's you were not. So kudos to you.
I was at in Banff, Alberta, in the mountains, and I was at the Banff hot springs, and it's people come from all over the world to sit in the hot springs, and it's quite warm. And now you don't just sit in the cave in the rocks. They've got a swimming pool, and water comes in from the springs. And people don't even have to have a bathing suit, because you can buy one there, or disposable. So myself and my partner at the time, her name was Deborah, we were just in the water and really digging the salts. And I kind of heard a splash behind me, and I looked around and I didn't see any adults or anything. And then I looked over and there was a kid underwater, and I just reached down and grabbed the kid's arm and picked the kid up and put him on the side of the pool. And then let go. And his mother then said, "Oh, Johnny, what are you doing?" And, she grabbed her kid and took him away. A kid hadn't passed out yet. He just didn't come up. And,
wow.
And I just, grabbed him and put him up and then put him on the side. And then I went back and, started cuddling with Deborah. Just like that, the kid would have drowned if I hadn't been there.
Yeah.
And I just did it. It just happened.
Well,
I didn't plan it. It just happens.
How many times has that happened where you've been there to directly intervene in something that was a life or death situation?
Hundreds. I can't remember them all.
I think that's interesting.
I can't remember most.
I actually had that conversation with someone recently who said, there have been so many times that I was where I needed to be, and there's so many people alive because I responded the way that I did, or because I was in place for that. Not just the person that was saved, but then the lineage down.
Yes.
So directly affecting a family line or whatever, and there you are.
Yeah.
So, and you don't really think that that's something that's that common, right? And yet I have two friends who, goodness knows how many people individually or together y'all are responsible for walking this planet. There's just something so kismet about that.
I'm not sure what kismet is, but I think it's
like
good.
Karma. It is.
Okay.
Like fate.
Okay.
It's like fate. And
so the way I got off the street, first, okay, so I left home at 14 and a half. It was early November of that year, and I left from the suburbs, and I went to downtown Toronto, and it was a very cold winter, and it was very cold and snowy, and I had nowhere to live, and I wouldn't go to a shelter, and I met a couple of kids that were on the street, and we would hang out, and there was a restaurant on Yonge Street, a little south of College, and it was called the Orange Spot. Now, in those days, Toronto closed at midnight. They just turned the city off. And this Orange Spot was like a hamburger joint. And the front room, or the front area, was relatively small. The guy had maybe 5 or 6 tables, and people would come in and buy hamburgers and eat them there. Then he had a back room that was really big, that would hold 30 tables. And not very many customers went in there, but this man let the street kids go in there. And as long as we didn't cause any problems, it was, causing, he was okay. And every time, if somebody would buy something every now and again.
Right.
And there was one day, and I've always been like a pretty high energy person. And one day I noticed that at lunchtime, the dinner, all the tables were dirty, and there he was cooking hamburgers. So, because I didn't have anything to do, I just cleaned up the tables and put the dishes in the sink, and I just started doing that because I had nothing to do. And one day the guy, I did it, and one day the guy gave me a hamburger. And then that started for a while. And then one day he asked me, did I know how to cook hamburgers? And I said, well, of course I do. I didn't, but I said yes. And he started showing me how to cook hamburgers. And then I started, doing that. And now remember, I'm a street kid. I don't have a place to live. When that restaurant closes, I don't have anywhere to go. He gave me an envelope, a deposit envelope, and the deposit book. And he said, would you please take this to the bank and make the deposit? And I went to the bank and made the deposit and came back. And that night, he said to me that he knows that I didn't have anywhere to stay, and that I could sleep in the basement if I wanted. But if I did, the door would be locked and I wouldn't be able to get out. And he said, as long as you're okay with that, you can sleep in the basement. And I said, okay. And then my friends that were hanging out, they left, and I slept in the basement. And that went on, I don't quite know how long. And when I was working in the restaurant during the day, though, I'd make sure my friends would get a hamburger or two.
Right.
And when I'd been doing that for a while, the guy said to me at closing, he said, it's really not right that you don't get out. And he said, you're an honest kid and you're really, really responsible. So I'm going to let you have a key to the restaurant. And if you go out, please lock the door. And I said, yeah, sure. And when he left and the store was closed, I opened the back door and several of my friends came in. And I cooked a bunch of hamburgers and we all ate the hamburgers. And then we went downstairs and slept in the basement. And in the morning, I rustled them up and pushed them out and got the restaurant ready and started cooking. And every night my friends came in and slept in the basement. And I cooked hamburgers. And that's one of the ways I got off the street.
That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But knowing you, not so amazing.
It seemed to be the right thing to do. This is the type of person I was, right?
Yeah, still are.
And when I heard that if you worked at the Cozy Tea Room in Toronto, if you worked there during the day, you would get paid. You would get a sandwich and a cup of tea and cookies, and you would get paid for the readings you do. And if you worked there at night, you would get a hot dinner. Wow. Besides a hamburger, a hot dinner, cookies and a cup of tea, and you would get paid. And I had never read tea leaves before, and I had never read cards before, but I was doing psychic things. And on December 17th that year, 1965, by the way, I applied at the Cozy Tea Room, and Mrs. Cox, the owner, interviewed me, and my interview was doing a reading for her. And I had to do a tea leaf reading and a card reading. And I just picked the teacup up in my hands, and I held it in front of me. I had no idea what the globs of, looks like globs of
I know.
crap,
I've never understood
right?
that either.
Yeah. And I had no idea what they meant, but I held it in front of me, and then I just looked at the person in the eyes, and then I just did the regular kind of reading I did. And then it was time to do the card reading, and I started I had no idea what the cards meant, but I was a good speaker, so that what I was saying to the person, I incorporated the cards in it. Therefore, number 6, and you got, yada, yada. And this is because of the influence of number 8. And then I would tell them stuff. And that's what I would do. But I would have no idea what the cards meant or but I would just do the readings. And I worked there. When I started there, I was 15. And the day I applied, I got I got the cold lunch and paid, and I worked the night shift as well and had a hot dinner and got paid. And that night I had a place to sleep, and the next day I had a job to come to. And I worked at the Cozy Tea Room until I was around 21 years old. And I worked there almost every day, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days a week, and even 7 days a week. And by the time I was about 21, I'd done thousands of readings.
Wow.
And I was doing readings for old people,
We have to take our last break. And
Okay.
I want to hear more about this. So we will
Okay.
be right back. And
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
oh, come on. I'm Southern, but nope. That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back for the final segment here on Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I'm Kat Hobson, your host, with my guest, Robert Lyndsy Milne. And we were talking in the break about your podcast.
Yes.
And it's called My Side of the Crystal Ball.
Yep.
And I am a new subscriber for it.
Thank you
because
so
I went
much.
and found you.
Yes.
And, well, I mean, I know how good you are as a guest. I can only imagine you as a host. I think that you're charming and wonderful. You're intelligent.
Thank you.
And we do great here, so I know you're a great host.
I've noticed with a lot of my guests, we both end up having like tearful moments when we do the interviews together, and some really beautiful things come out. It's really a lot of fun. So I called it My Side of the Crystal Ball, and I do have a crystal ball, but I've never used it to do readings, but it's always been beside me. So I also speak, I have a casual way sometimes I speak about my work. Like I'll say, I've been slaving over a hot crystal ball all day.
Yes.
I say things like that, but I don't actually use a crystal ball. So it's just my side of the crystal ball, meaning what it's like being a psychic. And how I see it. That's why it's called that. Mm-hmm. And it's a 1 hour show. And it's very much like a late night talk show. And there are 3 segments. And the first segment, and incidentally, it's brought in with music, special music for the introduction. And then I do the intros and stuff. And then the 3 segments, 2 of them are 15 minutes each. The first one is called WWRS, and that stands for What Would Robert Say? And I come up with a topic, and I talk about the topic. Like one show, I decided to talk about what trust is, and then I talked about how to build trust, how to create it, how to maintain it. One show I talked about how to be psychic. Another show I talked about when you're in a situation and you don't know what to do, how to figure that out. And then another WWRS was when you know something is going to happen, but not necessarily know when it's going to happen or how. Like somebody dying. What you can do, though, is decide how you want to experience it. So no matter what, you will experience it. So you can do nothing and experience that person's completing their life as it happens, or you can decide how you would like to experience it. And then I went on to talk about how you do those types of things. So we're doing a lot of mental things like that in WWRS and more positive growth things in that. And then the next segment is called the Experts Chair. And each segment, by the way, has like unique art and music to introduce each segment. And then so the experts chair is somebody who's really, really good at their job and is, well known, and we do a really fast, concise, really exciting interview. And sometimes it goes 20 minutes, a little bit longer. And then the next segment is a half an hour, and it's called the main event. And again, once again, music is brought in, and the show is, the segment's brought in with music and exited that way. And then my saying at the end of the show, what I say at the end, and I, do the call to action and all that. And then I say, and just before we leave, do good, stay safe, and above all, just be kind. And that's with music underneath. And that's the way my show goes. So it's fast, it's up tempo, it's positive, and we talk about lots of different things. Had one woman come on, I know her personally, and she, young woman, she's like 33 or so. She has been a nurse for 10 years, 5 of them in palliative care. And she talks about what she does and what they do with the patients in palliative care. Right. And it was such a beautiful, special segment because it was so real and loving and positive. It was really quite special. So I've had some of my friends on, like some Canadians, and I've had some people from Australia and New Zealand and England, and we're having some really great guests. So, last week, Wednesday, I had my mentor on.
I know. That
my
was
mentor
so cool.
From did you see it?
Yes, you're 40 years since you had talked to him, right?
Yeah, well, no, 40 years since we talked about that. Every
Gotcha.
now and again, George had called me and I'd done psychic things for him and stuff. But we never talked about the old days the way we did.
Right.
It was pretty special.
Well, I know you were so excited about it.
Yeah, it was pretty special. And
what was your favorite part about that? Your favorite moment, I guess.
It's a selfish one.
That's okay.
Okay, it was a selfish one. It was when we were now George throughout that interview kept pointing out how unique I was, mm-hmm. and how I stood out or how different I was from everybody. And it's true, I was. And I describe, and this is when we were putting on the spiritual weekends and the weekend retreats. And this was in Sylvan Lake in Alberta. And I was, my role in this particular part was to do a psychic performance, a stand-up psychic performance for the group that we had. And they were our West Coast group, and they came from the West Coast, and I was there to entertain them. And it was my psychic performance. And I was really cocky, and I was a hot shot, and I came to show, I came there to show off. And when I started, to do those live readings, everything I said was wrong.
Oh, my word.
Everything.
That never happens to you.
That's what George said, too. That's what George, that never happened to me. And that's how he described it. That never happened to you. Well, it did. Everything I said was wrong. It was crushing. It was humiliating. It was devastating. It was just horrible. And I just crawled. I stood up there for over 20 minutes, just doing my best to do something. And everything was, and people just started watching me, and started feeling sorry for me, because I was, I just wouldn't stop. I wouldn't quit. And then I did. Anyway, I crawled away devastated. And I said that part. And then George said, yeah, but what did you do the next day? And I said, I came back and nailed it.
There you go.
And I did. And then he talked a little bit about, and the timing and blah, 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 and this is what I needed to do. And I said, and the most amazing reason why I was so wrong is I learned what it feels like when you're wrong. And it's a very clear feeling. And I learned it. And the only way I could have learned it was going up there and seeing it, feeling it, and doing it. And now I have a very clear awareness of when I'm saying something, if it's right or if it's wrong. But now that it's easy with the extreme stuff. Right. It's when you're in the middle, when it can go either way, is when that's a valuable feeling or valuable lesson.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, totally. It would have to be.
Yeah. Oh, yes. It was really valuable. And so I liked that part when I confessed to falling on my face, and then George says, "Then what did you do?" I liked that part. That was fun.
Well, to be able to say I came back out and killed it, that's perfect. Nailed it.
You know what?
What?
George made a great big deal about what guts I had, et cetera, et cetera. There was no choice. There was no choice. I fell on my face and I got up and did it again. But that's how I've lived my life.
It is.
That's just me. And I would never quit.
There's no way you could quit.
No.
Because you have been called to this and you've known that since you were 4.
That's right. That's right.
And it is you. It's
right.
not just a part of you. It is you.
It is. Kat, it is my life. Mm-hmm. I've been single now since 2014. And it was a pretty long stretch. And now that doesn't mean I haven't had a girlfriend or a lover or a partner, but I have not been in a deeply committed relationship since about 2004. And all my life, my work has been my major dedication, the most important thing in my life. It's always been like that. Without exception, any time I'd been in a relationship, while I was committed to my work, I also was committed to the relationship. And my work, my quality of work didn't suffer. My quality of work didn't evolve. And when I was in a committed relationship, I didn't grow. I just was stagnant. And when I came out of the relationship, I then started having huge growth, bursts. And so I guess I've been, single for 18 years or something, or isn't that right? 4 or 19 years or something, really long time. Now, my commitment is doing this. I grow leaps and bounds. And at 72 and a half years old, I'm seeing things in ways I never imagined existed. And I'm seeing things on levels that I never knew were there. And I'm seeing ways of dealing with things I never imagined. And it's because I've been able to focus on and become committed to my calling.
Exactly.
Now, I'm not saying I regret that I didn't take a monk's life. In fact, I'm glad I didn't, because believe me, I lived a wild life. Believe me, I lived a wild life.
I don't doubt you.
I lived a rock star's life, and I milked it too.
On that note, we're out of time. I can't believe we're out of time.
Oh yeah.
But
okay.
I do not doubt it. I can see you doing that every day of your life.
Yeah. Which part? The rock star part or the psychic part? Well, actually, I did both.
I know you did.
All right.
But the one fed the other.
But not with the same person.
No doubt. But thank you so much for being my first show of this year. I enjoy you.
Thank you.
I think that we have a fantastic energy between us, and I'm thankful for that.
Thank you.
And I'm thankful for you.
I'm grateful to know you.
So your show is My Side of the Crystal Ball. It's on YouTube. Go subscribe.
Thank you.
And your website is Robert Lyndsy, Lyndsy, Milne.com.
Yes.
And people go find him. You'll never regret it.
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
Are you on TikTok? I'm fixing to try that for the first time. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're doing TikTok. That's right.
Fun stuff.
Yeah.
And so
there we are.
Everyone, thank you so much for being here. I know you enjoyed him. I always do. And, we'll see you next week. I'll be back on Wednesday for Paranormal Experience with Kat Hobson. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting us for all these years. I love all of y'all. Thank you. So have a great week. And don't forget, if you don't like what you're looking at, what are you going to do? You're going to change it. You're going to manifest what you want to have in your life. You're going to be the friend that you want to have. You're going to be the spouse that you dream of. And you're going to just be making sure that you are going out and changing your world. A smile. Even if you're wearing a mask, your eyes will smile. They'll see that. Do it. Make it so. And have a great night. Thanks for being here.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.